It was here, away from the lights of Hollywood, but not far from Del Mar, where he lived for more than 25 years, that Desi Arnaz was remembered today. It was a quiet end to the quiet life he lived following his 1960 divorce from Lucille Ball, who, along with her children, Lucy and Desi Jr., remembered the man who for so long lived in Lucy's shadow.
Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's love story is one of the most iconic and tumultuous relationships in Hollywood history. Their marriage was full of passion, creativity, and heartache, with both personal and professional highs and lows that would ultimately define their legacy as a couple and as individuals. Their on-screen chemistry in I Love Lucy was undeniable, but behind the scenes, their relationship was complicated and often painful, filled with arguments, separations, and betrayals that they never fully reconciled before Desi's death. Their love story began in 1940 on the set of Too Many Girls, when Desi, a young Cuban musician, met Lucille, an established actress. Lucille was initially skeptical about the young, handsome Desi, but their connection was instant and intense. Desi was captivated by her beauty and wit, while Lucille was swept off her feet by his charm and the passion he brought to everything he did. By the end of the year, they had eloped against the advice of their friends and family, who doubted the stability of their relationship. Lucille, in particular, was warned by everyone that the marriage wouldn't last, but she had fallen for Desi so deeply that nothing could deter her. Their marriage, from the very start, was a whirlwind. Despite their love for each other, their differences were glaring. Lucille came from humble beginnings and had fought for everything she had, while Desi came from a privileged background in Cuba, one filled with luxury and excess. Desi had a passionate, carefree personality, often enjoying the nightlife, while Lucille was more grounded and pragmatic, focused on her career. The constant separations due to their busy careers only exacerbated their differences, and jealousy, particularly on Desi's part, became a major issue. Lucille knew of his flirtations and affairs, which only fueled her insecurities. Desi, on the other hand, was possessive and feared losing Lucille to someone else, leading to constant arguments and emotional turbulence. Despite their constant fighting, there were moments of tenderness and love that would keep them together through the years. Desi would write Lucille heartfelt letters expressing his deep affection for her, while Lucille, despite her frustrations, would try to be understanding and supportive of his career. They both struggled with balancing their personal and professional lives, but they continued to make it work, especially when it came to their shared love for I Love Lucy. The show became a monumental success, cementing their status as television icons. However, their personal lives were falling apart as Desi's drinking and womanizing became harder to ignore, and Lucille's temper and frustration with their marriage began to take a toll. By 1960, after 20 years of marriage, they separated. The divorce was painful but necessary for both of them. They loved each other deeply but realized that they were too different and their differences were tearing them apart. Yet despite the divorce, they remained incredibly close and continued to support each other throughout their lives. They shared 2 children, Lucy and Desi Jr., and their bond as parents remained strong, even as their romantic relationship ended. Both went on to remarry, Lucille to comedian Gary Morton and Desi to Edith McHirsch, but neither marriage could fully replace what they had shared. They remained intertwined in each other's lives until the end, a testament to the enduring love they had for each other. Even after their divorce, Lucille and Desi continued to communicate, often sharing fond memories of their time together. Lucille later recalled that despite the pain of their separation, she always carried a torch for him. Desi too admitted in later years that he never stopped loving Lucille. He wrote her heartfelt letters, sending her red and white carnations on their anniversary, a gesture he had made throughout their marriage. Desi also expressed regret over the end of their relationship, acknowledging that he had not been the best husband. In his final years, he became increasingly emotional when speaking about Lucille.
Behind the goofy comedy and that slapstick humor, Lucille Ball struggled through a tumultuous marriage and complicated family life.
She was constantly trying to do it all, and I'm sure it must have been exhausting.
Now, secret audio tapes unearthed by Lucille Ball's daughter are shedding new light on the untold story of her parents' turbulent love affair.
I wanted to get as far away as possible.
Actress Lucy Arnaz tells Inside Edition about her shocking discovery of the recordings, which are being played for the first time in 50 years in the Amazon Prime documentary, Lucy and Desi.
And he was deeply affected by their divorce. Desi had always been the life of the party, but as he aged, he became more reflective and regretful of the mistakes he had made. The last time they spoke was on November 30th, 1986, their wedding anniversary. anniversary, when Desi was gravely ill with lung cancer. Lucille, who had been by his side through much of his illness, spoke to him one last time. Their conversation was short, but it was filled with love. Lucille, as always, told him she loved him, and Desi responded in kind, saying, "I love you too, honey." It was a bittersweet exchange, filled with emotion and a sense of finality. Desi passed away just 2 days later, and Lucille was left with a deep sense of loss, even though she had long been remarried. Lucille, too, had her struggles in the years following their divorce. While she found success with her new TV shows, she never forgot the love she shared with Desi. She carried the pain of their separation with her, even though she never spoke ill of him. Her last years were filled with reflections on their time together, and she often reminisced about their early days and the deep bond they had shared. When she passed away in 1989, she was surrounded by family, including her children and grandchildren. Desi had been a huge part of her life, and despite everything, she loved him until her final breath.
And now the sad and quite unexpected news from California. Everyone knew that Lucille Ball had been ill, and everyone felt immensely relieved when it appeared that Lucy was doing better. Well, today she died suddenly. She was 77. Here's ABC's Ken Kashiwahara.
At Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Lucille Ball's death this morning was sudden and completely unexpected. Since her heart surgery a week ago, the hospital had been flooded with letters and get-well cards. And indeed, she appeared to be recovering, talking, sitting up, even walking. But today, a hospital spokesman said a part of her cardiac system not involved in the surgery ruptured.
There was no reason to suspect that anything was about to occur.
As word of Lucille Ball's death spread throughout Hollywood, fans gathered at her house.
In the years following their deaths, their children Lucy and Desi Jr. have kept their legacy alive, both personally and professionally. Lucy has spoken often about the love her parents had for each other and the impact it had on her own life. She recalled seeing her parents' final goodbye with Desi in his weakened state, listening to Lucille's voice on the phone. "I love you," Lucille said 5 times, her voice filled with emotion. Desi's reply, "I love you too, honey," was the last thing Lucille ever heard him say. Their love story may have been filled with heartbreak and betrayal, but at the end of it all, it was a deep and lasting love that neither could ever fully forget.
All of a sudden, we unearthed a box of tapes that my mother had used while she was writing an autobiography, and I didn't know they existed.
I was madly in love with Desi. I've never felt that way about anyone before.
You see, when we worked, we were happy.
She also discovered audio recordings by her famous dad.
Even in death, their love endured, leaving behind a legacy that continues to captivate and inspire. The love between Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz was messy, passionate, and flawed, but it was undeniably real, and it remains one of the most iconic relationships in Hollywood history.